So I was just bragging on you, Sam, about how I just watched one of your TikToks. Look at you, there you are. I'm like, there's your face.
Wow.
Where that you had gone like to the high schools and got these kids amped up and riled up, like let's go vote. We're going to change the world. Got them got the registrations, took them to the. I'm like, what is happening? And it coincided with somebody that a friend of mine that very political, and I was like, hey, the stuff that's going on with the Supreme Court in Tennessee and blah blah blah, like what can we do? Like I am bawling, like this cannot happen. And he's like, well, you have to get people to vote, but they have to believe in themselves. Like we have to be like, yes, your vote counts. If your voices weren't being heard, they wouldn't try to stop us. And so when I saw that, and I was like, I told Elisa, I said, that's what this is about. That's what we need. We need our kids. Like, this is our future. We need them to be riled up. We need them to know your voice matters. And they're seeing that, I feel that.
Yeah, I hope so. That was kind of part of my message to them was, I got them riled up as best as I could with just a few days left in their school year. They were, but no, I mean, I was there presenting just to these classes, and I had two topics I was talking about. I was talking about low voter turnout, which, as y'all know, was last in the nation. Yep. And then the other one was gerrymandering. And so you combine those two, and Oklahoma was just kind of the epicenter of those two things. Yep. And so I specifically pointed out to your point about how they're doing so much to take away the power of our vote is when you look at the redistricting that happened back in 2021, the area that was cut out of CD5 was South Oklahoma City. And I told these kids, I'm like, they know what you guys should know. They know that there's so much potential power in our community here in South Oklahoma City because there's all these kids who their parents may not be eligible to vote, but they are born here. They're U.S. citizens. And so they preemptively drew us out of the Central Congressional District, CD5, and put us in the same congressional district as, Western Oklahoma communities that we may have things in common with, but by the by, our day-to-day life isn't the same as people in rural Oklahoma.
Yep.
Well, and you're running for Forrest Bennett's seat, correct?
That's
now,
right.
He has left the building, so to speak. And so it's an empty seat. And then also we have the primaries. I mean, weeks away at this point. I just cannot believe how fast this time has just flown by in some aspects.
And the 22nd, the last day to register if you want to vote in the primary.
That's right. This Friday.
Yeah. That's 22nd.
Yeah. But like having a district that is predominantly like Capitol Hill, with what I call the red light district, Valleybrook. I just cannot wrap my head around how you legitimize, gerrymandering those two pieces together because, what? So tell us a little bit about yourself. I'm sorry, we just kind of jumped in. And
I know, right? And I was like, because they, even with Sam and, Bennett and Arturo, they rigged that out, and part of the Hispanic community that got that, and you're like, what the hell? Oh, so much. So so I feel like this is one of the few ones that we don't have any bias, right? Like we don't know you ahead of time, we haven't worked with you, none of these things. So I'm like, this can be good.
Sure.
So if you would, so I can read. So, but I'd like to hear from you, kind of hey, who are you? What are you about? What's going on?
Yeah. So the spiel I give on the doorstep is that I'm born and raised here in South Oklahoma City. And that's a big part of kind of my political perspective is that, we're a unique hub down here, a unique lived experience. And that's a big part of who I am, a big part of my identity. So born and raised down here on the South Side. Currently, I'm a criminal defense and immigration attorney. I work for another legislator, Senator Michael Brooks, in his law office. I've known him for a long time. Many of my family members have worked for his office. So when I graduated law school, he offered me a job, and he's been very supportive of my political ambitions as well. And so I ran for a state senate, the overlapping Senate district here, Senate District 46, 2 years ago. And, came up short in the primary, 163 votes. And Mark Mann's in that seat. And so this seat opened up with Forrest resigning after winning presidency of the AFL-CIO, who just recently endorsed me. The AFL-CIO did.
That's a big deal. I'm just saying.
Right? I'm a former public school teacher. Speaking of unions, I was a member of the AFT, American Federation of Teachers, when I was a high school teacher at U.S. Grant here on the South Side. Before that, I've always worked in community and youth programming. So I graduated college in 2012 with a sociology degree and immediately went to work at a nonprofit called the Latino Community Development Agency.
Love them.
Incredible work. They were doing it back then. They're doing even more incredible work now. And I ran their youth programs there. And from there, I worked in education nonprofits, specifically the Gear Up program at UCO, the grant they had. And then I entered the education field and became a teacher. And so did that for 3 years, which coincided with the teacher walkout of 2018. And I left just in time to miss out having to teach through the pandemic. So I think I timed that well. It shaped my perspective, kind of refined some of the observations I'd already been making that, students in Oklahoma City public schools and public schools in general, and then specifically here in South Oklahoma City, are so overlooked when it comes to investments, when it comes to funding, when it comes to providing opportunities, not just within the school system, but in life in general. And so I saw that my students and their families were struggling, were, at the mercy of these legal systems that they had little power to affect. And so that's what kind of launched me into a legal career and just made me decide to go to law school. That and the low teacher pay. Right.
I mean, that's a huge motivator. But yeah, so, and then getting to work for that, I was like, look, you look great on paper, man. I was like, what the heck? I think I like him. Like, what's happening? When you kind of look over something like, yeah, let's get him on. Then you're like, oh yeah, let's get him on. Because that is a big deal, when, you are born and raised here and you are from that area. And so, and so, especially being like the immigration. So let's just get the elephant out of the room. So you are an immigration attorney. So kind of what is your thought if you get elected in? What are some things that you kind of have that, hey, I can help, I can make this, try to put this in place?
Yeah. So, I mean, I always give the caveat, as a non-Republican in the state legislature, I can't promise to go in there and change things overnight.
Right.
But I can promise to go in there and advocate as strongly as I can, as loudly as I can for my community. And that includes my immigrant community. My mother immigrated here from Mexico in 1979 and she naturalized in 1998. And so, and then again, my work experience, my lived experience intersects so much with the immigrant community. So I'm indebted to them and I feel a responsibility that, if elected to this position, that's someone that's a group that I'm going to be advocating strongly for. Now, when it comes to the specifics, I was talking with Representative Alonso about this recently, is just that it's challenging because you spend so much time playing defense. It's really hard to propose any good bills that might create some, the best we can hope for now is incremental change, incremental improvements, and, life outcomes, quality of life for people within our communities. But with that said, I mean, you got to understand the political reality, right? I think a lot of these anti-immigrant bill proposals are just that. They're political. They're done because that's the national conversation. When Trump ran the second time, that was kind of the zeitgeist, the wave that they rode in on. And it was something they interpreted as so popular that led to his reelection, that they've just been pounding that ever since. And it's become excessive. And I think we saw that in this last legislative session with a few of these things just not being heard and not coming to fruition, which was very much a result of the work of the Latino Legislative Caucus. Senator Brooks, Representative Alonso Sandoval, and Representative Menz working behind the scenes to kill a lot of these bad bills. Excuse me. So I intend to join in the Latino Caucus, and I'm not above working across the aisle and trying to find ways to reach into the hearts and the logical parts of these the opposing parties' thought process to say, listen, if you do this, it's going to lead to such dramatic negative.
Oh, he froze it. Did
he did
all sorts of stuff, all sorts of negative consequences. That it's not worth the political price, right?
You kind of froze up there for a minute. Okay. I was like, oh no, you're good.
My back.
Yeah, you're here.
Oh yeah, no, you're here.
Yeah. I mean, there's got to be some sanity that can be introduced that wrangles in allowing folks to kidnap people off the streets without any notification at all, without judicial warrants, without any of the paperwork. Throw them, like even taking them out of state. Like there's got to be some breaks or some, I don't know what it is, but something has got to give. We see so many people just getting snatched up. We run a food pantry, and it's out of a garage, so it's pretty unassuming for anybody. And it's in Bethany, which we have a huge Hispanic community here, and the stories and the people that come through are just absolutely heartbreaking stories. Little 3-year-old boys grabbing a hold of goldfish crackers like they were precious gold or prized stuffed animal or something. It's just those little things that we can do to help some of these community members, and we have to have other ways too. But from a legislative perspective, is there any brakes that can be put on, or slow down? I mean, there's no judicial warrants.
Yeah. So Senator Brooks had proposed a bill that would, I believe, keep state officials from being able to wear, state law enforcement agents to be able to wear masks. So that was kind of the height of that, issue going on, and I think that's still something that's a legitimate goal. And I think that just didn't get out of committee, or maybe not even heard in committee. Another bill that he proposed, which I think did get some traction, was allowing for state officials, so state legislatures, to inspect, without notice, any detention facilities holding immigrants.
Yep.
So I mean, that's something, right? And that's kind of what we need to work towards, is that kind of like, this just makes sense, right? If we're going to be spending our tax dollars on these contracts with the federal government, and we're employing Oklahomans to work in these facilities, and we're holding people from Oklahoma families there, then we should have the right as elected officials to go in and inspect them, making sure they're comporting with human rights, with civil rights and legal rights of the people that are being detained there. So as far as putting brakes on, I think we just got to find those areas, right? What makes sense to everybody, regardless of your position on immigration and immigrants. Because the reality is, there's so much ugliness that's just been revealed or unveiled by this, presidential administration, right? We've seen in Oklahoma, unfortunately, so many small town jurisdictions or smaller jurisdictions that have just taken the veil off and implemented their immigration enforcement at the local level, right? So you have some areas and that may not even have those 287G agreements where they they receive some funding and training from immigration, but they don't even have those agreements, yet they're still complying with and facilitating the transfer of people they see and arrest in their communities and their jurisdictions, to transfer them to immigration custody, right? Kind of like voluntarily, cooperating and facilitating the transfer from local jurisdiction to immigration jurisdiction. And so we've seen a lot of that. We've seen that done by executive order. We've seen that done by Governor Stitt's, Operation Guardian, and the implementation, essentially the deputization of all highway patrol troopers as immigration officials and enforcement officers, right? Every time I get a criminal case with an immigrant client and they were stopped by highway patrol, it seems like it's kind of a foregone conclusion where that's headed.
Well, right? Sent did say many moons ago that he wanted his own militia.
Yeah.
Now he does.
Right.
For real. I mean, like, that's what he wanted. Like, we're like, we have the reserves.
But we did have 2 bills last year that would have given him a militia that we got knocked down. So, I mean, it's pretty
for
crazy.
real, we were like, bro, what?
Yeah, it's been insane. It's been insane. Yeah. So, like, I know, like, being an immigration attorney and coming from the South Side, you've probably seen just about everything that you could possibly imagine, and then some. What can people do, like, in general, to help the community, to I don't know exactly what the needs are. I used to live on the South Side. I was a resident at Andrews Square, which is public housing, which has its own nightmare set of things that I've been trying to get people to address for a couple of years now too. Yeah. But, like, what is it that would make, like, the biggest impact? If we're voting people in, we're trying to vote differently, we're pushing for people to vote differently, consciously, I would say, as opposed to, oh yeah, I know that name, click. But what in reality can we or should we be doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think supporting organizations that are doing the work in our communities, or, if you're in a more distant community, it's not connected to larger cities, being that network that provides mutual aid, that provides a community response. And Community Response Network is Oklahoma City is one of those organizations, Dream Action Oklahoma, the ACLU, LULAC, and then, some politicians or candidates that may be tied into the community that are just trying to bring awareness to these issues. And so specific actions that can be taken, I think, is, donating to those organizations, assisting in mutual aid efforts. I had this idea recently, and maybe someone can run with it from this, but so a lot of the times what we see is that, people get pulled over for some slight traffic violation. Maybe it's their tag light, the light over their license plate being, out. Maybe it's a tail light being out or a headlight being out, and that leads to a traffic stop. And then once the officer learns that the person doesn't have a license, well, that leads to questions about immigration. So if we can kind of stop it at the root cause, or at the initial cause, which is they had a light on their vehicle out, maybe we can create some mutual aid efforts around that. And so I don't know if anyone has access to auto shops or
mobile mechanics,
right? Stuff like that they might have, light bulbs that are used in common, vehicles, or at least have some type of triage diagnosis situation where, you say people come in, drive through this parking lot, we'll inspect your vehicle, we'll make sure that all the lights are working, and at least diagnose you. That way you can go and get that taken care of. Maybe there's a fund that people can donate to that we can just kind of get that. So that was kind of an idea, but things like that, actions where you're giving of your time, you're giving of your effort, and if you have the privilege of being a U.S. citizen and one that wouldn't be targeted by these efforts, putting your body on the line or putting your body at risk. I've seen some groups, you guys probably have too, or they go out to these gas stations where we've seen these detentions happen, and they just have signs, hey, be careful, right? Yeah, they're out here watching. So I don't know, is that you guys? Wonderful.
I mean, Oklahomans against ICE. Yeah. Jessica, she is phenomenal. Just freaking love her. Yeah.
That whole team, I'm like, gosh.
But amazing. Yeah, I went out with them once. I didn't get to go this last time. I think they went this morning, but I didn't get to go this morning. So, and yes, my wheels are spinning because right off the top of my head, we know of 2 mobile mechanics. One of them is indigenous, and one of them is, like, very white, and both of them have offered their time and to do something like this. So we could actually put together, like, a day. All we would need is, like, a parking lot or somewhere that would be willing to host it.
But here's the caveat, and I just want to share this. When we did our pantry, what I have, because I also work in this field, what I've noticed is if this targeted group feels like that they have to show ID to get these benefits, they don't go. And so when we had the little boy that picked up the goldfish, I mean, we're bawling, right? We're like, oh my God, over food. And so, very heartbreaking. But they didn't, we were like, take what you need, here, take all of this stuff. They didn't have to show ID. I think they brought some friends back. Stories were unbelievably heartbreaking. Like, it still just kind of haunts me that I'm like, oh my God, we're putting people through this. So I feel like that should be a caveat that we say, as far as, listen, anybody is welcome. We don't have to vet you. We're just, you don't have to,
no questions
and I don't
asked.
Right. I don't need questions. I don't need ID. I just need you to show up and have that done.
Yeah.
But
really really, it would have to be something that's just kind of put out to the general public with the understanding that this is targeted towards communities that are at risk. But I mean, for safety, everybody should be showing up, right?
Right.
If you have it that's where it's just like only if you're an immigrant to show up, well, then that could be a potential risk.
We're like, everybody
for enforcement actions, right? So everybody come through, get your car checked out.
2 legs and let's go.
Yeah, right. Let's get your lights fixed and all that stuff. So
what a fantastic idea! Thank you.
The other thing I would say is that the reality that we see with these enforcement actions and the consequences of that is that they're going after the breadwinners in the families. And so who gets left behind is mom with multiple children, multiple mouths to feed, and she may not have been working. Or she may have been working very little and earning a lot less than dad, who's now in the detention center with, potential legal bills in the tens of thousands, with a immigration bond, if he's even eligible. So they're facing these very stark realities. And so our actions should be aimed at alleviating some of their worries, some of their burdens, in addition to fighting the legal fight on the other side. So
what are some plans that you have to protect your culture and on the South Side over there? Like what? And then what can we do to support that? Because we're going to be out there anyway. So,
so what do you mean by protect the culture? Just the community?
So you were born and raised in South Oklahoma City, and how do you plan to protect the culture of Southside while driving economic investment into the district?
Yeah, no. And that's something I've thought about a lot. So I previously ran for city council in 2021. And so that was a big issue of mine is making sure that the Southside community, the present Southside community is a part of the growth and development that we see here, right? So our communities that are here, we shouldn't be getting pushed out. Gentrification shouldn't be a thing that's happening. And I also look at it this way, right? We want economic development. We want improvement in infrastructure and in amenities and resources available in our communities. And we don't want that to result in the people who lived here and raised their families here to get pushed out. And so one of my big carrying calls is every time I talk to someone who I knew who grew up with me here on the South Side, and I learned that they've moved over to Mustang or Yukon or Moore or Edmond, I say, come back here and raise your kids and send them to the schools that we went to, and let's be the parents that that are involved, that maybe we left here or you left here because you were like, the opportunities are gone there and we need to go elsewhere. Or we want to find safety and comfort in the suburbs, but we can create community and strength and community here in our native neighborhoods. And so it's a part of that. It's just, making sure that people understand that we've got the ability to do that. And it may even be economically advantageous to buy property here in the neighborhood you grew up in, to fix up a house, and to send your kids to the schools. We've got a wonderful opportunity right now with the Oklahoma City Public Schools bond issue that's essentially building 3 new schools here right in my neighborhood, right? I mean, if I had a kid that was going to be starting elementary school next year, they would go to Adelaide Lee Elementary, which is going to be a dual immersion, a dual language school. They'd go there, and then they'd go to Skyline Elementary, which is a combination of Wheeler and Capitol Hill Middle School, about a mile away from me. And then from there, they'd go to the brand new Capitol Hill High School building that they're all going to be completed at the beginning of next school year. So it's a great time to be living on the South Side. And I would encourage anyone who's been from here, grew up here, to come back and contribute. And then, yeah, I mean, but also we're going to be welcoming new people into our community. So I'm not afraid of that. I think one thing we've done really well here in South Oklahoma City, Capitol Hill specifically, is that the development hasn't happened overnight, right? The improvement, and that's for better or worse, it hasn't happened overnight. And so we've almost been selective in how it's grown, right? And you look at other areas where it just kind of ballooned really quickly, and no shade thrown, but you look at a place like Plaza District, which is, I went to middle school and high school at Classen SAS just around the corner, and that's night and day what happened there, right? Between the initial businesses going in there to create or the resurgence of Plaza District, the community that lived there, and kind of the displacement that's happened and the complete transformation of that district. That hasn't happened here. I don't know if it ever will. I think we just kind of have a different vibe going on down here.
But it's not bad. I mean, I remember that with Cholinos back in the 90s, like when that whole started, I'm like, that's where we were, right? That's when we would go out there. Culture in that area is just phenomenal. And so I feel like some of it's left, and now we're trying to get it back. And we want that. But so that also kind of leads into when we talk about gentrification and housing. You talked about running for city council. And so being focused on neighborhood like empowerment and gentrification. So running for state legislator, what specific policy levers could you use to address eviction rates and expand affordable housing in Oklahoma County?
Yeah, it has been so disappointing to see so many good bill proposals just be shot down or not even heard at all. I mean, I think of Julia Curd, I think of Representative Forrest Bennett, Mickey Dolenz. They've all put forth great bills that just make sense, and they're really just small incremental change. And I believe the most recent one, Julia Curt's bill, that would have just added Sundays and holidays to the eviction timeline and extend them by however long those holidays or weekends are. And it was just shot down, right? I interned with the Metropolitan Fair Housing Council during law school, and so I'd receive calls daily when I was working there of tenants, the horrible conditions that they suffer through, and we still don't have an anti-retaliation policy in our Landlord Tenant Act. We need to extend the eviction timeline. It would be great. There's some good organizations out there doing work to provide mediation services between landlords and tenants. I was on the board of Shelter Well before it dissolved and was absorbed by the Mental Health Association, or one of the Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services Department. I believe that's what it is. Anyway, Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services.
ODMH, yeah, SAS.
But they did great work in mediation and trying to prevent eviction, because if we can prevent eviction, we can diminish the numbers of people experiencing homelessness, right? Because that's the root cause. People will get an eviction because of some financial emergency, and it leads to them losing their housing and being out on the streets, and then that just causes so many other different issues. So policy wise, I'm going to join that fight and fight as hard as I can to just bring some mercy to the process. Extend the eviction timeline, increase the amount of people. And I think that's one thing we have gotten in the last few years, is increase the amount that people can charge against their rent for issues that they have to fix themselves that their landlord wasn't doing. But also we need to increase the affordable housing stock. And I mean, truly affordable housing, right? People talk about affordable housing as a house that costs $140,000. That's not affordable to people who need it, right? I'd love to have a moratorium on corporations buying housing, on hedge funds buying housing in the state of Oklahoma. I know Mickey Dolen's been fighting that fight, and I'm going to join him on that. Right. So there's certain things that I know they're uphill battles in the current makeup of our legislature, but I'm going to add my name to the list of people fighting that battle and climbing uphill.
Now, speaking of affordable housing, the one thing that we found out this year that nobody knew about prior to this year, including the sitting legislators, was there is zero oversight for public housing in our state. Zero. Right. I guess the way they've set it up is, the housing authority pays the bills but they don't get to oversee like they should, and no legislator gets to oversee it, although they can call on the Housing Finance Authority, to ask questions. But there's zero oversight in this. And, when you look at what the residents there face and the disregard for respect of human life, it is utterly insane. We spent the better part of, since December, almost every single month, trying to help Andrews Square residents because they had, a water leak issue, water main that broke. But that was, a long extension of not fixing things. And then they get up there and they ask for $52 million from the city, right, using this developer, because now we want to do mixed use, which don't even get me started. But one, there's still no oversight in this housing system. There's, there is zero budgeted maintenance, right? So we know for a fact that human beings for thousands of years have been building buildings. The ones that last are the ones that people put money into, where they plan maintenance, where they know that at some point pieces of this building are going to need to be severely replaced or repaired. And those are budgeted in. And these buildings, some of them have lasted for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. But when it comes to housing, everything's disposable. And it is disheartening. It is just disheartening. There is an indigenous person, elderly person now that we've been trying to help who has a brain tumor. But because she can't get help for her brain tumor, she has resorted to medicating herself using alcohol. Well, that further creates a barrier for her to getting help, because now, in addition to all of these other things, now you have this illness that we can say treat you like a pariah, right? Because then that falls under the substance abuse, mental health, which is now DOC. I cannot even anymore.
Don't say that.
But, so, how do we help our legislators? And I know unless we have a lot of people show up midterms and vote, like our lives depended on it, because they do, we are in a terrible position here in Oklahoma because we have very, very few people who aren't part of this death cult in office, it seems like. Right. I mean, there was 36 of them that said it's okay to marry kids, as a for instance. Wow. So, in the interim between now and hopefully a midterm where we're hoping, we're taking 50, 60 seats. I know I'm very optimistic.
There's hope, but there's always hope,
right? But short of that, how you get elected, so we're going to send you to office, but there's still this uber majority. How do we help you guys get some of these pieces? I know there are a very few streams in which you can get in, when you're the minority. Yeah. But how can the people, support y'all in that and getting some sort of sanity returned back to our legislation? Because this is not working for anybody right now.
Yeah. Right. And you got it right there, is that, it's going to require participation of the people, of constituents. And I kind of always tell my friends who've been in the legislature, I'm like, you got to recognize, if you don't already do, many of them do, that, legislatively your power is very small, but publicly your power is large. You have a platform through which you can give access to information that people otherwise might be missing out on. And I think that works both ways too, because I think there's wonderful people out there doing great work, great advocacy work, great research work. into these bills, into even just the agenda that are posted for the legislature during session to see what's coming up. I'm thinking of Christy Taylor. I know you guys post a lot of like what's coming up as far as, you know, informing the people. And I think that's going to be something I'm going to rely on a lot as a legislator is what do people paying attention to? What is like really throwing up a flag in their minds when they see the agendas posted by the supermajority, what they're going to be putting up for a vote the next day, and how do we activate the community, the public, to call their legislatures and really do that, right? And so one of my goals that I think I can do personally as a legislature is just making that process as simple as possible and explaining how easy it is to contact your legislature, whether it be email, letter, phone call, in person, so that people understand that it's, you know, it's the people's house. It's a place that you pay your tax dollars to fund, to maintain. And those people are there to work for you. And while it doesn't feel like that a lot of times, that you have any control or power there, you absolutely do. And so to try to activate that, right, and to make that as simple as possible and explain how that process works, so that when those issues do come up, when those crazy, you know, less than 24-hour notice agendas pop up, we are ready. We know how to be activated. And that kind of goes to a broader goal of mine, right? So this is about creating a culture of participation in communities like mine here in South Oklahoma City. And this is what I told these kids in high school too. I'm like, you know, we didn't grow up with a culture of voting. We didn't grow up with that habit in our family, many of us anyway. Like I said, my mother immigrated here in 1979. She naturalized in 1998. I don't think she voted until 2016 when I took her to vote in the primaries that year. Right. And it's because my dad was kind of apolitical, or maybe he just kind of gave up on that throughout his life. And so as a result, no one in my family really had the habit or the understanding of you need to pay attention to what's going on in politics. The other thing is, you know, when you're in a working class family, you're working on surviving. Right. And so you don't have the time or energy to focus on what's happening at 23rd and Lincoln. And so it's about creating a culture where that's just our habit. We show up. We stay informed on who's running for office, on what issues are being proposed and passed in our legislature, what bills are being proposed and passed there, and engaging with it. And not just when it negatively impacts our community directly, right? But just making it a habit, creating that culture in our communities to stay informed, to be engaged, and to take action.
Yeah, but I love how you said too, like, this is our house. Like, we voted you in, right? And even though I might not be your constituent, I am telling somebody in your area, like, this is who we need, blah, 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 right? We need that representation. I guess I didn't realize how many people didn't know. I'm like, they're like, what do you do? Like, you go up to the Capitol, what do you do? I said, I walk in the door. But really, I mean, people think I went on a school field trip, or I went, you know, basically for a school field trip. And so now I'm like, no, you just go in, like, you Google your zip code, find out. But also, I also work in mental health and substance abuse. And so, sometimes we have to be reacclimated. I say that as somebody's in recovery, like, you know, some things happen, blah, blah, blah. And so kind of being retaught, like, hey, you can do these things. Like, you can go to the Capitol, you can call your representatives, you can call the White House. Yeah. Where that goes, nobody knows, but you have that right? This is what we're doing.
Yeah.
I do want to bring up, though, something you said about, like, you know, being able to work across the aisle, because that was something that you had talked about advocating with the state superintendent. Kind of that nonpartisan office. So why do you feel like removing party labels from education leadership is essential for the future of Oklahoma's classrooms?
Removing political? Did I say that at some point? Was it maybe in my last campaign? I said let's make it a nonpartisan position so that everybody can vote on it, right? That might be it. So maybe it was just worded differently. But yeah, instead of being subject to these extreme primaries and what resulted in us getting Ryan Walters for 2.5 years as state superintendent. Let's make it a nonpartisan issue. Education shouldn't be a partisan issue. I mean, we recognize that in our school boards. Many of our municipalities have nonpartisan elections. It makes sense when it comes to something that's supposed to be a public good, like education, that it shouldn't be a partisan deal. We should be basing our votes, the campaigns for those positions on experience, on proposals, and what they're going to do to improve educational outcomes.
Right.
Totally agree with that. Yeah. So, okay. So what legislation is like, you get up there, what's your first 30 days or your first pieces of legislation that you want to dive into?
Your top three. What you got?
Yeah. Top three. I mean, housing, public education. I would really love a public education support staff raise. Right. I think that, as a former teacher, seeing that how public school support staff gets left behind in these raise conversations. It's happened again this year, right? They always get left behind, and they got left behind in the 2018 walkout conversation, not by teachers, not by school staff or educational leaders, but by the legislature. And so we feel like we just have that, or it seems like they just want to check a box, say we raise teacher pay. Okay, but you've got support staff that's making on average minimum wage with the hours and the amount of work they're putting into their jobs. And it's stressful and it's tough. And educators, certified educators, depend on those paraprofessionals in their rooms, depend on the people that are helping out in the administrative offices to make sure that things run smoothly. They should be taken care of as well. So I'd love to explore legislation or proposals to that end. Housing's a big issue that I want to, like I said, continue to fight. And then I also want to bring public comment to the legislature. And so to me, that makes sense, right? People around the state, they're there at the Capitol all the time, and it's kind of a lobbying deal, right? You have your specific days where you show up at the Capitol, but then you don't have an avenue to actually make comment on legislation that's directly going to impact your interest. Right. So there's no public comment in committees unless you're specifically invited by the chair. There's no public comment on the legislative floor, on the gallery floor, or the chamber floor. Sorry. And you see that in other states. And we know why that's not allowed, because people don't want to be called out. And again, this is another thing that just makes sense, right? You're legislating things that impact people directly. People that are closest to the issue have a voice.
Yeah. Man, those are some good ones. Oh my gosh. I wish I was in your district still, because I was like, wait, what?
We could knock some doors or something. I was like, wow.
Right.
I haven't
know folks at Andrews Square. Maybe we could start there. We can just
I went and knocked there. I think there was 13 doors there that are registered Democrats, or at least registered and regularly participating Democrats.
Yeah, well, the voting poll is in the library, which makes it super convenient.
Yeah.
But they stopped putting the note on the outside of the door, so if the doors are closed, nobody knows when voting day is. And now, to make it even worse, they've got a window up. They took and put a window in for the office in where the voting is. So it's going to be any person's guess how voting is going to go there this year. But
that's where I go about it.
Yeah.
Let me cheat and add one more thing, because this has been coming up specifically today. I was knocking doors before I came out here, and this may be more county level, but the way that polling place boundaries are drawn makes no sense, at least here on the south side. So about 4 years ago, I guess, maybe closer to 2021, maybe 5 years ago, Capitol Hill Library, which is right across the street from my house, became a polling place. It's not my polling place. I still have to go down to Andrews Square, which I don't mind. I mean, I'm an able-bodied adult. I can get in my car. I could even walk down there. But for people who live, and then the polling place at the Capitol Hill Library is for people who live all the way over by I-35, 3 to 4 miles away. So you think of someone who has any type of mobility or transportation issues, no chance they're going to be able to get out and vote. And we have mail-in ballots, but you have to re-register every year. So there's so many obstacles in the way. I was knocking doors on 58th and Chartel, or 57th and Chartel, which is another kind of assisted living space. It's very much like Andrew Square. I don't know if it's public housing or what it is, but right down the block from them is the plumbers and pipe fitters training school. And that's a polling place, but it's not their polling place. Their polling place is half a mile away at the Southern Oaks church. And and these are people who obviously are going to have trouble getting to a polling place that's not down the block from them. And there's hundreds of people that live there. So I don't know what the mechanisms are in the state legislature to impact that. Like I said, it might be a county by county deal, but I want to look into it. And that's something that impacts our ability to vote and our ability to engage in our political system.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, the gerrymandering of the actual polling places, so to speak. Because, where does that map even come from? Does the legislators draw them, or does the election board draw them?
I think it's the county election boards, or maybe the state election board.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they have some type of math equation that gets them to where they, that needs to happen. And there is a public comment period where you can, provide input, but some of this stuff, I'm just like, how did y'all not think of that? How did y'all not think that this redrew people who have mobility issues, transportation issues, to where now they have to go a half a mile, 2 miles away to vote?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. That is crazy. Wow. I love your 3. Oh my gosh, I'm on board with all of those. So how do we support you? Let's see. How do we support you? Like, what all things do you need for your campaign right now? Where are y'all at?
We're 27 days away from the primary election. And so I'm busy knocking doors, attending events, making fundraising calls. So if you're able to contribute to the campaign, go to Sam for OK /donate. It'll take you to the Act Blue page, or hit me up. I'm happy to bring by a remit envelope to write a check. We have volunteer events every Saturday. Right now it's at 1 p.m. We might move that a little earlier as it gets warmer out. But this Saturday, we're meeting at the Calle dos Cinco Plaza right there on 25th and Harvey at 1 p.m. So come out. We're going to be doing lit drop. So we're not even going to be knocking doors. Well, I'll be knocking doors, but volunteers will just be doing door hangers, letting people know that this election's coming up, reminding them. We're trying to do a broad sweep of voters in the district, and so that we can then follow up with them as we get closer to election day. So we need as many feet on the ground as we can get, as many drivers that are willing to drive these lit droppers around, so we can cover this district. It's a somewhat compact district, but it is funnily shaped.
That's new.
It's like a weird Z.
Is Southwest 59th and Western on there?
Southwest 59th and Western is, the southwest corner. It goes, it's over this little carve out. So there's this carve out at 46th and Walker, and it goes out to Western, and then it goes down to 59th, and then it jogs back to Walker being the western border. So it's an odd one. And then the true south border is I-240 for the most part of the district.
We need to bring back street captains, Hughes of Heather says.
Right? Yeah. But they just did that. They just redid that within the last 4+ years, I want to say.
21, I think, there was some. I don't think this district got too carved up. I think there was just some kind of shuffling around. I know when I spoke to Mickey Goodallins, he said, I think, 92 took a little bit of 93, and 89 took a little bit of 92 in certain parts. But so it's a spread out district. So the more people we can get out there, the better. And then the last thing I'll say, as far as helping the campaign, is just share the content I'm trying to put out there. Right. My campaigns have always been about engaging the community. And so if we do that, I feel like there's success to it, even if I haven't gotten the results I wanted in the last 2 campaigns I've done. But we want to engage as many young people. Again, this campaign's about creating that culture, creating that civic participation habit within our communities. So share away as best you can, and bring people into the fold.
Lindsay and High, is that your area? Do you know?
Lindsay and High, yes. Depending on, so Lindsay and High is, on the east side. Yeah, I believe that is. and that'll be from south of the river all the way down to I-240. Lindsay and High are in the district. Yeah.
All right, there you go. Yeah.
Shout out to my friend Christina Rivera. She's on the live if she's still here.
Who is it?
Metro Tech District 4 board member Christina Rivera. She's the one with the stars. And
there she is. Nice. Hola. Do you want her to come up, or where is she?
I don't know if she's still on here. She just said
I think she is. Hola. Who is she again?
She's the Metro Tech board member for District 4, which includes downtown and South Oklahoma City and bits of the north side as well. So she just got elected back in February.
Nice.
Okay.
We took some seats in February in some unexpected places. Like, I'm still in awe that Bethany has a Latina female mayor. Like, to me, when I heard that,
like, yes.
Shout out to Amanda Sandoval.
Yes, and we did have the pleasure of meeting her too, both right before and after her election. So it was pretty cool. Yeah. Good people, so many good people out there. You know, we just appreciate everything that our community is the life of the city, you know, and without that, which I'm sorry, it's people that make that up, not the buildings, not the businesses, you know, not the lawns or whatever. Like, it's the people that make community. And it has just been disheartening to see Oklahoma go from, you know, where our priorities were, you can tell, right? So we were 17th in education because we put money into education, right? We've since ripped it all out and shredded it and given it all away from our public education into private funding education, which is crazy. But our community, you know, the members within our community are and should be at the forefront of everything, and that our elected officials have forgotten that they're just mere stewards of our public resources, all of ours, not just their party, you know, not just the ones they like within their party or whatever, but everybody within their districts. And so I know for me, it has been refreshing talking to you tonight, and, you know, just having that community oriented, you know, background and heart, because we need you in office.
Right? I'm like,
with that. Yeah, we need more of that. Can we clone you as well? You know,
well, like, we're doing our best down here on the south side, and there's reason for hope. And so you guys probably paid attention to the OKCPS school board race that happened down here. We had two lovely Latinas, wonderfully well qualified and articulate candidates running for that seat. And so I think that's a sign, hopefully a sign of things to come, is that instead of having either no one that's willing to run for that seat, or someone who doesn't really represent our community, we had two great candidates that were born and raised here as well. And so that's the type of culture we're trying to create down here. We're trying to get people involved in the process. Senator Brooks that's one of his goals as a legislator, as an elected official, is opening the door wide open for more Latinos, more people from South Oklahoma City to become, you know, civically engaged as candidates, as donors, as volunteers, as, you know, political consultants. And we're seeing that really start to take off. You know, it's a whole new way for Democrats in Oklahoma. And I'm really excited. Speaking of which, we've got a wonderful slate of candidates all across the state, up and down the ballot. I've never been more excited to be on a ballot with some of these fellow Democrats. You know, I think we've got a lot of reason to hope in that regard as well.
Sounds like we need to get y'all all up here and collabing.
Okay.
Man, I love that. I am actually starting to get excited at some of the people who have stepped up. It is just amazing to see, you know, strong community members who care about their community. Oh, look at those babies!
I heard him doing this earlier, and I was like, I know you got dogs, just let them come on.
Yeah.
Which all they back in. I'm like,
oh, they're so cute. Yeah. Now, did they get to go out on the campaign trail with you?
I don't think I'm taking them out this time. This guy's new. Twix is the big one. Snickers is down here. He's real.
Twix and Snickers.
He's still puppy-like, so he's very.
Is it the left side or the right side?
Right, the left Twix right there.
right.
Whichever one's the sweetest, she's a sweetie.
I love that. That is beautiful. So is there anything that we have not covered that you would like people to know? We're going to post the full interview on YouTube. We'll shoot you the link to that too. And we put that across all of our social media platforms as well. So people can, up until the primary and hopefully even after, be able to, go back and look at your interview and learn more about you. So is there anything that we've missed?
Man, I think we touched it all in this hour here. I think we've really covered the gambit of what's going on in this election, this campaign, this electoral cycle. I did encourage people to keep things local. When people want to talk about national level stuff, I mean, it's understandable. It does impact us. But as I tell these students that I talk with, things impact us so much more deeply and regularly on the local level. And so I think that's where our actions and our donor dollars should be focused. In a state like Oklahoma, our donor dollars should be focused at the local level as much as possible.
Absolutely.
Well, and honestly, just looking at what happened to Massey, for instance, yesterday, if we don't focus our dollars here, somebody else is going to do that for us. Yeah. And we might not like the auctions at that point. So to me, it is imperative that, bring the focus in to where right now we still have an impact.
Yeah.
It might be a small one, but we still have an impact. So appreciate your time today. And again, to get a hold of you to volunteer for your campaign, it's samforok.com.
Is it for or FOR?
FOR, and it's Sam for OK on Instagram and Facebook. And then, as you guys can see here, it's Sam for HD92 here on TikTok.
Okay. Perfect. Nice. Perfect. Thank you so much for your time. And we look forward to having you back after the primaries. I just got a good feeling.
Definitely. I know. I'm like, sir, we're going to speak this into existence right now.
Right.
Like I said, really great on paper and in person. So kudos, sir.
Just kidding. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I'm excited. We got a Thunder game going on, so go Thunder.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot.
It was Wicked at work today.
Before I realized that, but I came through. I'm a man of my word, and so I'm glad we had this conversation. Thanks again for having me here.
Thank you. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you to everybody who's tuned in tonight. We appreciate y'all joining us for another Humpday Exchange. Have a great night.